All right, welcome back to Readpool. We are 4 installments in already, but for now, we want to take a look at the last story in X-Force before Deadpool gets his own miniseries. This is going to be the first longer story in the X-Force comics that involves Deadpool that isn't plotted by Rob Liefeld. So now we are at the point, Image has been around for over a year at this point. They are their own entity. Marvel has tried chasing the art trends, tried to replace the artists, and Image is just not a giant market share away from Marvel. The X books, though, are still white hot. We're just coming off of the Executioner's Song crossover, and the state of X-Force at this time is, in the Executioner's Song crossover, the X-Men believed that Cable tried to assassinate Professor Xavier live on television. But it wasn't Cable, it was Strife, because what we as the readers know, but the X-Men didn't know yet, is that Cable and Strife share a face. We've got a lot of same face going on in X-Men at this time. And so the X-Men try to hunt down Cable to arrest him and get some answers. They can't find him, they can find X-Force. They make quick work of X-Force. And when I say the X-Men, I mean both strike teams, Gold and Blue, and all of X-Factor go after X-Force. So it wasn't quite what you'd call a fair fight. X-Force does hold their own, but Sam gives the team up. They voluntarily turn themselves in. They spend a lot of the crossover in a cell in the basement of the X-Mansion as the X-Men learn and realize that it wasn't Cable, it was Strife, because Strife also kidnapped Cyclops and Jean Grey, and they have to go rescue them from the moon. The entire ordeal ends with Cable and Strife facing off against each other, fighting and then disappearing in a sort of time storm MacGuffin bomb situation as all of the other characters look on at the both of them disappearing from reality. After the crossover, Professor X has a conversation with Sam Guthrie and they talk about their philosophical differences. Professor X ultimately does decide to let X-Force go to discover and become their own people, discover who they are as early 20-somethings, late teens, whatever their age is supposed to be at this point. It's vague at best. So we're going to take a look at these comics today, and we're also going to take a look at one more appearance from this era that's a bit goofier than the rest. But we'll get to that in a second. We want to kick off with X-Force 21. Oh, War Machines! That was me doing mouth guitar of the opening of Kiss's War Machine. So as I mentioned, everyone believes Cable to be dead officially after the Executioner's Song saga. And after that, X-Force had received a note saying that Cable had a space station called Greymalkin that was up in orbit over the Earth. They didn't know about this. So they hop in a jet that I believe they took from the X-Men. It's a, you know, X-Men have all that fancy Shi'ar technology in Westchester. And they take the jet back to New Mexico on James Proudstar's reservation where they've been holing up. And they learn about Greymalkin floating over the Earth in orbit. And they head up there to see what's up there. But the problem is, the United States government and S.H.I.E.L.D. have also discovered that this is floating up there above the Earth. And so both groups get there. And it turns out we're going to have ourselves a classic old Donnybrook. Here we go. War Machine just unleashing on X-Force here. Again, Greg Capullo. Harry Candelario is now on inks. I loved this duo on the book. Really, really loved Harry's inks over Greg's pencils. It just like really felt clean, really felt like you got a lot of action and you knew exactly, you know, he just knew how to enhance Capullo's art really well at this phase without putting too much business on the page. We still get, you know, some extra horizontal lines across faces, maybe some cross-hatching and rendering that we didn't necessarily need, right? But Still looks really good. Anyways, big knockdown drag out. Here's Nick Fury in his spacesuit variant. I loved this outfit on him. I thought it was well designed, very cool. You'll also notice that X-Force looks a little different in this issue, and that's because in issue 19, while they were still in the mansion, one of the members of X-Force found a clothing creator, a Cheeeeeer I don't know. It was one of those MacGuffin technologies from the Cheeeeeer that the X-Men just had lying around and shit. And so they designed new costumes for themselves before they stole a jet and bounced from the mansion. You'll notice that this story, by the way, doesn't have a lot to do with Deadpool. Deadpool is mostly in the background of these issues. He is, I believe, the B story, the C/B story of these issues. Meanwhile, Domino, and we are going to cover this. So Domino, as we know from last installment of Readpool, Cable and Domino stopped Tolliver, but Cable asked Domino to go find his X-Men team. Now she hasn't quite done that yet because she's been kidnapped and out of commission for a year. So she's actually on a mission for revenge first. But, or, you know, kind of like, hey, we can do both at the same time. Here she is. She's already found Grizzly, and she comes to the home of Hammer. These are obviously all members of the Six-Pack, Cable's old team. And we know more about them from the Cable miniseries that had also come out about 6 months before this, where we learned a bit more about Cable's past than we knew up to that point. It involves keeping Cable's legacy alive. Does it involve killing him? No. Sorry, bud. All right, we'll learn more about that next issue. But again, here's Bridge getting in X-Force's face and Sam being like, you're an old dipshit, you're not gonna do shit. These guys are still technically vigilantes to them, and they're like, we don't want you punks running off with this either. And he's like, what are you gonna do with it? Make more weapons? Make better guns? And so Nick Fury says, well, what do you want with it, Guthrie? And so we get a little bit of vulnerability from Sam where he says, I just want for Cable to have left us something, anything. And that's pretty sad, pretty touching. And, if you've been following X-Force up to this point through the first 2 years, you could tell they just wanted anything from him, because it really felt like, they had a really contentious relationship. Cable wanted to be this father figure for them. They wanted that from him, and then they were separated. And then they kept getting separated, and now they believe he's gone. And so what do they have to show for their time with him? Not much. And Lila Cheney's been hanging out with the group too after Executioner's Song. She helped them get up to the space station. I apologize. I don't believe they used a jet. You'd think that making a regular series like this, I'd do a little more research before I turn the camera on, but I didn't. Sam and Berto trying to figure out what to do, trying to figure out how to stop Graymalkin from self-destructing. And now let's get into the part that we really wanted to see in this issue, Boston, Massachusetts. So Vanessa had snuck off, and she's in Boston now. In the background of the last couple of issues, we saw her pulling her shit together. We saw her tracking down her old friend, Christina Valentino. And so they show up in Cheers. This is actual Cheers, by the way. You can see Norm and Cliff and Frasier and Lilith in the background there. And here's Sam that walks up, says, what's happening? Can I get you a drink? Uh-oh, better make it a double, Sammy. You know why? Because Vanessa has now taken her friend Christina's face, because she just doesn't know who she is anymore. But someone that does know who she is, this guy right here, somewhere on the streets of New Delhi outside of a townhouse once owned by the deceased crime lord, Mr. Tolliver. And so Deadpool's out here looking for info regarding Mr. Tolliver. Any new information that you need regarding Mr. Tolliver's offers can be made readily available to you. He's like, I'm ready, so make them available. And they're like, you didn't have to murder us. We would have just given you this shit. He's like, here. Oh, turns out that's near Boston. So she was living with that Valentino broad before Tolliver blackmailed her. So now we know who we're talking about. We're talking once again about Vanessa. Ooh, I always hated that little snit too. Snit? I have never heard this word before in my life. Snit. I'm going to use it time and again instead of shit going forward. But you know what? Actually, I don't know. Saying it out loud now feels like it might be misogynistic. This might be loaded language. I got to learn more about snit. I might have just gotten my video blocked. What do I even know? That's it, Nessie. I'm coming for you. I'm going to cut you both down. All right, so we know Deadpool is on the hunt for Vanessa once again. And in the meantime, you've got Bridge and War Machine and Fury all arguing with each other about what's supposed to happen. But then, alert, alert, everything blows up with Birdo and Sam still in the shuttle. Oh noes! So now, it's X-Force 22, The Final Gift, which is also the name of the company that sent me sympathy flowers and handled the cremation for my cat. They were called Final Gift because they send you your cat's ashes. They also put your dead cat's paws in plaster, which to me was the creepiest part of that. They were like, hey, here's an impression of your cat's paw. I'm like, no, this is an impression of my deceased cat's paw, which is way weirder than what you think this is. So X-Force 22, Final Gift. Awesome tech, by the way. Greg Capullo can draw the shit out of fake technology here. This all feels really believable. And again, too, you love to see a big gun in a Rob Liefeld book. All right, so debris, literal fire in the sky. But then, of course, Bridge pulls a gun because that's all he knows how to do, is threaten people. And X-Force teleports away with Lila Cheney. And everyone's like, great job, dumbass. Meanwhile, hey, guess what? Birdo and Sam also made it out because they jettisoned in a little escape pod that Professor had pushed them into. And Professor's still with them for a little while longer. We do a quick cutaway to see what's going on. Hey, more of these contraptions. I swear I have seen more of these hand bondage devices in these issues of X-Force than I've ever seen anywhere else in comics or real life. The externals are hanging on to these three guys to try to draw Guthrie out because they need to talk to the newest external. You know how that could have worked? Just coming back later when Guthrie is on the planet. Instead of kidnapping his friends, you guys are way too aggressive for your own good. Meanwhile, more Department K shenanigans. Here's Vanessa and Grizzly again. They're up in Canada trying to get answers. They break into Department K to get some access codes. They need to find some info about Cable. They got to dig deep for it. But bad news. Weapon Prime has showed up to be like, you aren't supposed to be here. And it's Tiger Strike again. Oh boy, he has more characters that we've never met before, but they're a little more interestingly designed, and hopefully we get more information about them before they once again disappear from the series. But here is Vanessa and her best friend once again coming out of a movie after they were at Cheers, so they got smashed and went out to see a film. Yeah, we don't really get a clue as to what they were watching that night. So she's like, hey, can you morph back into yourself? She's like, I don't know. And they stop to look at some fine jewelry. And how tough could it be to crack the alarm in a rinky-dink store like this one? So already Vanessa thinking about stealing some shit. Just this girl can't stay out of trouble, but doesn't have time to do that because probably about as tough as it is to crack both your skulls. Look who's here, all the way from New Delhi. It's our boy Deadpool. Holy shit. And this is, I think, the first time we see his name in font. So this is going to be our title treatment for Deadpool moving forward, and I don't think we've seen this before in a comic. I love it. I love the information about first little appearances like that. But Vanessa, ready for him, says, I don't know how you found me, Wade, but you're not going to turn me into a punching bag again. So she takes him out. I was going to do the hard way, don't you, girl? It's okay by me, hun. Let's make a night out of it. But before that can happen, someone gets a hole blown in them by this dude. All right, I hope I didn't just shoot Vanessa. And this is Sluggo. Uh-oh, Deadpool hasn't seen Sluggo in years and says, what the fig are you doing here? Sluggo says, you tell me you ain't missed me, Pool? Ain't you heard about Tolliver? Ain't you heard about the will? All right, Lordy, the loonies are being let out of the bin today. Listen, dude, if you got the wrong one, then you're an idiot. If you got the right one, then you're dead. So if you killed the wrong one of these two, then you're stupid. He did. Guess what? He's stupid. If he got the right one, then Deadpool would have killed Sluggo because Deadpool's got unfinished business with Vanessa. So we leave them in this issue. We pop back and kind of see that X-Force is taking all their new toys out. And so Sam comes back down the hill and they're like, hey man, we've got trouble. What's going on? We just got a message on our comms array. And it is, his name's Saul, by the way. Saul is an external as well. And he says, hey, all your asshole friends, we've got them captured. And again, too, they've got so many different ways to put people in bondage, do these guys, because they just had those armed things on the cliff and they were like, we can't keep you on the cliff because we can't get you on video. All right, let's put you in this, like, I don't know, oral sex pod. And then we've got these like big snakes coming off the back here. So like, we're gonna connect the back of your head to the back of their heads. What is... I don't know. This is just some weird sex shit, I think. Props to Capullo for doing some, I guess, research to make this technology make, I guess, some sort of sense, but it is weird. Anyways, they've got these guys captured and they're like, hey, you better come get them or they're gonna die. And why is that just, that's the externals plan every time. Hey, come get your boy or he's gonna die. And that takes us through this issue. Like I said, the main story is a bit meatier. Deadpool is hanging out in the background of this one. He's not going to be background for too much longer. You heard that mention of the will, Tolliver's will, in the previous issues. That is going to be a major plot point for Deadpool through his next appearances here and what takes him into his first miniseries. And we got Beef Candelario again just on inks. The team breaking into this facility. Who is this goof in a full body cast? Who do we know? Oh, it's Cruel. Here's Domino and Grizzly fighting the new weapon Prime. And at the very least, we get a breakdown of who it is. So Yeti's back again. And we remembered that he's white in this issue. He was brown, colored brown in the last one. Double Trouble. So that's the two sexy electric twins. They're symbiotic plasma dischargers. You know what? This is the most throw a dart at a dartboard power explanation that I've ever heard. Hey, you know, you're going to hit 3 words and those are the powers that these characters have. And meanwhile, here's Tiger Strike again. He's wearing an electromagnetic armor. Why the fuck is he called Tiger Strike? Nothing about this character explains what his powers are. He was flying before. He has an electromagnetic armor, which looks actually just like spandex. And then he's shooting bolts out of his hands. Whatever. What a waste of a character this one is. They get away, but you know, we're not here to talk about Grizzly and Domino. We're here to talk about Deadpool. So we see them get away. We cut back to the externals just having some high tea. Little Gideon, little Saul hanging out having tea while they patiently wait for X-Force to get back. And hilariously, they were like, okay, now that we got video with you, now that we sent our you know, ISIS video or whatever over to X-Force, put them back under that rock. Who lifted James Proudstar and got him under that rock? What are these connected to? I've got so many questions, and you better believe none of them are going to get answered. But meanwhile, X-Force and Cruel in a body cast, who they've kidnapped to help them find out where Saul's headquarters are. And Vanessa has run away from the fight in the streets. Christina is dead as far as we know. Why did Sluggo do it? She didn't even stick around to see if the body was cold. She runs back to the apartment. She's stuffing her things into a duffel bag to get out of here. She's just, why did I drag you into my problems with Tolliver and Deadpool and Cable and all the other maniacs I've been caught up with the last few years? And then a big-ass gun gets put to the back of her head because you've always been too much of a wuss, Vanessa. That's why. And then, it's Sluggo and it's Deadpool again. Don't forget to pack the black bathing suit with the dolphins on them. They were always my favorite. And so it's like Deadpool, Wade, calls him by his real name, by the way. Don't do this. You want Nessie. You have a little talk, but before they can get to their talk, fa-chow, they get holes blasted in them here. And who was that? That little morphing freak talks to me first. It's Domino, who has found out where Vanessa is. So she's finally going to get the revenge that she's wanted since issue 15. Whose life did you steal this time, girly? No one. I had to dupe your life. Tolliver forced me to. And so Domino about to just beat the ever-loving tar out of Vanessa. Vanessa says, wait, I know where you can find Cable's team. I know where X-Force is. So we got a cliffhanger there as we cut back to X-Force confronting the externals. They're like, hey, we're taking our friends back and y'all can eat it. And also Sam didn't show up because he knew that's what they wanted. And so we make the choices now, cabrones. Berto's like, you are yesterday's news, you old bag of crap. And Saul's like, hey, the externals might die if we don't get to study Sam Guthrie. And they're like, yo, if you keep harassing us, you're gonna die anyways. And so that wraps up X-Force issue 23. And we only get one page of Deadpool in X-Force 24. But oh boy, do I love it, because this issue is inked by Richard Bennett. So it's Greg Capullo and Richard Bennett. Immediately you see a stark difference, just so much more detail and like fine line inking over Capullo's pencils. This immediately feels like a Wildstorm book to me. Of course, I believe Bennett winds up going over to Wildstorm eventually, so that makes sense. Check out like the, it just gives it an added flair, just a more interesting texture to Capullo's pencils, the way that he approaches the art. And I love it. I can't get enough of it. This pair only stays together for a few issues. Capullo is off of X-Force. This is issue 24. He's done with X-Force by like 28 and has moved on to Image to draw Spawn for the next 11 million years. Uh-oh. Someone else must have gone to the, I don't know, bondage and mutant capture warehouse and bought more of these restraints. Just tubes and headpieces and arm and foot gauntlets. That's all they sell there. But here we are back in Boston. Domino's pissed because she wanted to kill Vanessa, and Grizzly's like, hey, you need to relax. So Hammer's like, this is the deal, Vanessa. Tell us how to find X-Force and hopefully Cable, and we'll keep Domino from caving your head in. And then Domino's like, no, we cave her head in and we find him anyways. We can do it however we want. And they're like, no, you're embarrassing us. You need to relax. And Vanessa's like, how'd you find me? Taking Domino's place for a year was quite a mistake, Miss Carlisle. You'd have been better off just killing her, because Vanessa will always find her man or woman. And they're like, what do we do about these two? And they're like, I don't know. They're not dead, Hammer. And so she says, give me this. And they're like, that's my gun. We need to buy some time, right? And so she just unloads in both of their backs, right? You killed them. You lased them in cold blood. She's like, 10 minutes ago, your Petey the dog shot me from behind to save my butt. Besides, it takes a lot more than a couple laser blast head and chest shots to kill these two. So again, we're being led to believe they have some type of regenerative. We're going to learn about it eventually, but pretty cruel to Deadpool here. And that's really all we get. They leave these two to kind of convalesce and wake up with holes in their heads and backs. And meanwhile, Vanessa's like, you idiots coming, I will take you to X-Force. And she's like, I swear if you're lying, it's the last thing you'll ever do. And then we see a purple hand out in space grabbing something. And this is odd. We'll come back to this again in a second. And so this actually ran around this time. This is the anniversary initiative for both titles that Marvel ran. They had a little bit of a crossover between the two called Blood Ties. So we got a little bit of a teaser here for all of the cool stuff that's coming out from the X offices over the next year. We're about to dip into Fatal Attractions. This is, if I'm not mistaken, the cover for the X Factor issue of the Fatal Attractions story. It's very loosely held together. The one thing that all the books have in common is a big-ass hologram that is just pasted onto the cover of each of the issues. Yeah, hologram cover to X-Force 92, penciled by Joe Quesada, inked by Milgram. So the hologram just kind of got dumped here over this gorgeous artwork. Here's a shot by Art T-Bear from the first issue of the Cable ongoing miniseries. This is the cover of the Sabretooth miniseries. I thought this was by Mark Teixeira. Doesn't look like Teixeira's signature down there. Here's a preview of Exodus, who's going to make their debut very soon. And this is an illustration from the cover of the very first Deadpool limited series, which we will get into very soon. But then the rest of this is just, again, showing off all the cool stuff happening with the X-Men at this time. So just to remind you, this is being published just as the end of the very first season of the cartoon has aired on Fox Kids. So the X-Men are a huge sensation. Marketing is like, pump everything you can with these characters out there. Let us squeeze all the money from these kids that we can. And so all of these big initiatives for their anniversary and just more product to get out there in front of the kids who have just discovered the X-Men on Saturday mornings at, if I'm not mistaken, they aired at 11 a.m. on the Fox Kids Saturday morning lineup. A contest, the hunt for Magneto. Why are we hunting for Magneto? Well, he's been considered dead since X-Men 3, but we just saw a purple hand in space reach out and find Graymalkin that we thought had been completely blown up in the previous issues of X-Force. But this character with the purple hand and the red suit and the ability to control metal, I mean magnetically, smiles because he's back and he's found a place to call home. This is the inciting incident for the Fatal Attractions crossover as Magneto returns to the X-Books and eventually rips Wolverine's adamantium out of his body. All right, roll it out, people. I'm really only continuing on the story here because I want you to see these Richard Bennett inks. I love how he brings Capullo's art to life. All right, it's a break-in. Oh, it's a Muty attack. You can't say that anymore, bro. I want to turn the page back real fast to show you another Entertainment This Month lineup, the Ultraverse, which was Malibu's answer to the comic book boom. They tried to start their own superhero universe. They wind up getting purchased by Marvel outright because they had high-end computer coloring and separations, and Marvel just wanted to buy them for their computers. And so they did. And over here, another weird crossover, Deathmate. I've got all the issues of this one. Boy, this is another one that's just a fucking wet fart in church. We were so fired up for this to happen. All of this promo art made us all hyped, and then the actual issues are a nonsensical mess that barely came out on time, on the Image side at least. I bet you're surprised. And at the end of it, nothing's been accomplished. The books themselves barely hang together as a story before they put all the toys back in the box and we quietly all forget that we cared about Deathmate. So that right there wraps up our first phase of Deadpool in the Marvel Universe. He has been an accessory character in X-Force, in the X-Men universe, for the first 2 years of his existence, and he's about to get his own headline miniseries. In that miniseries, he's going to be chasing down Tolliver's will to find out his legacy, and there's a bunch of other bounty hunters that he's going to be fighting with and against as well for the rights to Tolliver's stuff. So before we take off this episode, there's one more story that Deadpool appeared in this era, completely non-continuity, obviously, and that is in this book right here. So this was a Toys R Us limited edition giveaway. I can't recall, my brother had this comic, and I can't recall if he got this because he bought an X-Men figure at Toys R Us. And so with the purchase of a Marvel figure, you get a free comic, or if they just had them in the front and were like, take it. Either way, we got a copy of this comic when we were kids, and it is very, very much a comic that they printed for any kids that had been watching the X-Men cartoon and wanted to see these characters in action. It's weird because it's not necessarily the cartoon team. In fact, you know, these are the only these four characters were the mainstays on the cartoon. Archangel, guest spot. Iceman, guest spot. And in fact, don't even have guest spots at the time that this comic would have even been published. Starts out, you'd almost think Rob Liefeld plotted this one because it's a classic Liefeld plot. The heroes show up outside of a mysterious compound, and they have to break in to stop something from happening. And that's what we're about to do here, according to Eric Fiend. Craig Brosfield is our penciler, Bill Anderson, our inker, Joe Andriani, colorist, David Sharp, lettering. This is a murderer's row of, I think, people that just worked on licensed work or worked in the marketing department at Marvel. Not the usual names that you hear or read. You know, the Professor Xavier Psylocke pulled monitor duty on Cerebro. This is how we got here. And that's when everything went wrong. Yarg! Yarg! Professor, some kind of cybernetic matter. Muting my telepathic powers. Some kind of cybernetic matter. So it just kind of glorms out of the machine and then gets caught on Psylocke's psychic knife. The totality of her psychic powers. No, it's feeding off my psi powers, can't fight it, and now it's on her face as well. Meanwhile, this chick just kind of shows up. I don't know how the hell she got in here. Maybe she was formed from this. I don't know. But either way, she deactivates the security outside of, that's not a mansion, that's a hospital. And who's waiting outside? That's right, our boy Deadpool. It's showtime. And they kidnap a bunch of the X-Men, and Deadpool's overseeing Professor X and Psylocke getting put in these, I don't know, cyber capsules. I love that Professor X also immediately knew what this was coming out of Cerebro, but also not enough to be confident about it, said some kind of material. This is very funny to me. But Deadpool, come on, I don't have all day. You did good, kid. I'm sure Mr. G will reward you well, give you anything your heart desires. But first, get upstairs and see if Jugs needs a hand wrapping up his end of the operation. So just sort of vague language coming from Deadpool. We don't really know the character yet. They're like, oh, he's a wisecracker. So Eric Fiend's like, all right, I'll make the most of that. Hey, look at these accessories we used to buy for our... This is the craziest shit, and you better believe I knew people that had something like this. It's a magnifying glass and a light and better speakers than the speakers that already come in the game. This thing is so awkward. The Game Boy is just supposed to be something that you hold. This winds up becoming a weird ass, I don't know, Gray Malkin spaceship. Here we go, slapping him around. Oh no, the Ruby Quartz glasses. Out of my way, Deadpool, I want to finish him off. And then here's Deadpool being like, oh, we got what we came for. You can risk it and stay behind. Be my guest. I've got a deadline to keep. Meanwhile, they're like, oh, we got to break into this facility because this is where... And Dr. Glover, by the way, was Mr. G, who Deadpool was referring to earlier. And Gideon shows up and he's like, oh, you're going to do what I want. You know, and this is, by the way, the Cyber Sentinel, which he is developing, and that they're going to have to put a stop to. The X-Men show up, and they're like, hey, enough of this, Gideon. Gideon actually kind of more useful in this story than he is in any of the X-Force stories that he ever shows up in. But X-Men show up to save the day, and technically this is the first time the X-Men fight Deadpool. How about that? And so this is the first time Gambit and Deadpool face off against each other. Nice try, Deadpool. Killing stroke for sure. Were you up against a lesser opponent? Keep talking, Cajun. I'll nail you yet. But again, another Deadpool first in the place you'd least expect it. But the Cyber Sentinel is alive. The Prime Directive, destroy the X-Men and all other mutants within their immediate vicinity. And then Deadpool says, this wasn't in my contract. I'm out of here. And he literally just bounces off panel. This is the last appearance in the comic. But just again, a fun smash 'em up. All of these other ads are ads for stuff that you could get at Toys R Us. And we've saved the day, right? Oh, hey, everyone feels good. And hey, look, Gideon's like, no, everything's good. We're all good. I'm gonna take off from here. And Cyclops is like, you think we're just gonna let you waltz out of here? I was like, no, we're gonna stop you. And then Wolverine's like, hey, you know what? Fuck all this. I'm blowing this place up. And it blows up by, I don't know, destroying one load-bearing girder. And I love that Archangel has enough space to actually fly grabs Professor X. Then they don't even realize this. They leave Dr. Glover to die, and Gideon is just like, my complex, I'll get you for all this. You haven't heard the last of me. But for now they have, because kaboom, and they run out, and here's a big fun action pose at the end of the story. And they are truly extraordinary people deserving of the name X-Men. But there you go, a random first. The first time that the X-Men face off against Deadpool is in the pages of this weird-ass Toys R Us giveaway comic. And that's going to do it for us on Readpool this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to know what you think about it. Drop a comment below. Tell me if you were reading X-Force at the time. Tell me what you think of Deadpool. Are you a fan now? Is all of this new to you? I'd love to hear from you. And if you like what you saw here, don't forget to like and subscribe. The algorithm loves it when you like and subscribe and comment on my videos. Oh, how it loves it. And oh, how we love it when the algorithm loves us. That's going to do it for this installment of Deadpool's Readpool. We will be back next time with the very first miniseries, Deadpool, The Circle Chase.